heard this morning about an extreme case of injustice committed here in Christchurch recently, a homicide. The crime scene looked like something out of a snuff movie or some kind of macabre Hollywood R18 plus movie. There were a couple of murder weapons involved. One was a blunt instrument and one was a sharp kind of an instrument, kind of things you'd find in your garage or maybe your kitchen. The victim was a very young individual, unidentified, very little known about them. All we know is that the victim was in the care of their mum at the moment, not too sure if mum and dad were around together. Now, the victim had no criminal history, had no record, and apparently didn't see the attack coming at all. The murder itself was very brutal and bloodied. When the corpse was found, it was found dismembered. In fact, the head was decapitated and even limbs removed from the body. It was obviously a very excruciating, painful death suffered. The kind of thing you wouldn't dream of in your worst nightmare. But as violently and as painful as this death was, there were no screams heard, there was no yelling heard, nothing could be heard anywhere. In fact, the perpetrators of this crime enacted this act in such a way that no one could hear a thing, not even themselves. The perpetrators and accomplices of this heinous event, the ones who dealt the death blow, very educated, respected members of the community, but there are also a number of accomplices too. The perpetrator and the accomplices conspired together, sadly and tragically, with the mother of this victim to carry out this terrible act. What was the motive? All murders have a motive. FBI cold case detective said that the motives for any serious crime is either power, sex or money, finances. Well, apparently in this instance it was an issue of power, possibly finances, because money did change hands, and possibly sex as well, because there's some peripheral issues around sexuality. When the mother was interviewed, apparently she was overwhelmed with the thought of being responsible to house and care for this victim any longer, and the thought of possible loss of freedom, relationship, reputation and image was more than she could apparently bear. She was in fear of her life. She was afraid that this victim was going to ruin everything for her. And despite the offered help and assistance of those around her to take this victim off her hands and care for them and house them, she decided to go ahead with conspiring to the killing of this innocent person anyway. Now, as the case unfolds, apparently a number of members of the public appealed to the authorities when they found out about this. However, the perpetrators of the crime objected indignantly, claiming that actually this killing was virtuous and good and justified. They appealed to the reality that the victim involved was actually not a citizen of this nation. They had no social or legal status, therefore they had no right of legal defence. They even went as far to say as this victim was inhuman. They called them a parasite controlling the life of the mother. When the authorities were informed, there were no charges laid, there was not even any investigation ensued. In fact, the authorities said in the context of this particular case, it was a legal killing, and that the complainants were just troublemakers and making the situation worse for the victims, I beg your pardon, for the mother and the perpetrators and the accomplices. So the perpetrators got off scot-free. The victim, dead. Life brutally cut off, ended without the hope of a future and another day. Now, I know you all know the case I'm talking about, don't you? This form of killing has been given a special legal name. It's called abortion. And it's something that happens in this city by the hundreds every year, right in our own backyard. It happens in our nation by the thousands every year. And it happens in the world by the hundreds of thousands every year. Defenceless, dependent, innocent, young, male and female human beings' lives are taken. We can turn a blind eye, we can walk away from it, but it's a fact, it's the truth. This murder takes place in what should be the most safest, nurturing, protected environment of peace on earth, a mother's womb. What's aborted in the womb of a mother is not a random bunch of cells, it's not a parasite, it's an innocent, unique human being, fully human. We know it's fully human because it has 46 chromosomes from the mum and dad. It's utterly, indisputably human in nature. And we know it's unique because it has its own very unique set of DNA in every cell. We know it's innocent because it's never had an opportunity to do anything wrong or remiss at all. That's the reality. When an abortion takes place, an innocent, unique human being is killed. Our government today is filled with baby killers. And you may think I'm harsh in saying that, but that's the truth, folks. You argue it any other way. And this extreme abortion amendment bill passed under the lockdown, this government gave the power for indiscriminate, no questions asked abortions up to 20 weeks. That's left the door open for sex-selected abortions, no questions asked. So when an amendment was put forth to prevent sex-selected abortions, this government voted it down. Also during the amendment bill, there was an amendment put forward by politicians to prevent any babies being aborted to suffer any pain. And as gruesome as it sounds, folks, we need to face the reality of what happens when a baby's aborted. It's decapitated. Its limbs are ripped from its body. I spoke to a guy the other day who had a shoulder operation. He told me all the drugs and paraphernalia that strapped to his body to prevent him from feeling pain after the operation. And yet, somehow in our society, we're okay with the most innocent of human beings having their limbs ripped off their bodies, their heads decapitated, burnt to death with acid, and we want to go around pretending it doesn't happen, it's all okay. Well, it's not. So an amendment was made to ensure that babies were given anesthetic so that they don't feel anything. Guess what? It was voted down. Another amendment was made to protect babies that were incredibly, amazingly enough, able to survive an attempted abortion, having been poked and prodded and ripped apart or burnt with acid. An amendment was made to ensure that babies born alive after botched abortions would receive medical care like any other baby. Guess what? It was voted down. Now, a lot of people dispute that and say, that's not true, that's not true, show me the reality. I'll show you the reality. I can give you legislation. I'll give it directly off the Parliament's website, but not too many people actually want the truth. They want to live in a fantasy land pretending that these things aren't happening, but this is not true, but it is happening, it is true. So folks, how have we come to a place in society where we accept, tolerate, and even celebrate this kind of macabre action in our society? And the big question is, what are we going to do about it? When it comes to the election next month, in September, how are you going to vote? Are you going to vote for a party that allows this kind of atrocity to continue in this country? Or are you going to look into the other parties and identify parties that actually are anti-abortion, anti the killing and murdering of the most innocent human beings that exist on this planet? Or are you just going to vote for the party that wins, that puts a few more filthy dollars in your back pocket? We've come to a sick place of sick state of affairs, folks. Yeah, it's a heavy-hearted speech today, and I don't apologise for that. We need to stand up and speak up and stop pussyfooting around this crime against humanity, against the most innocent of our society. There's a March for Life happening August 15th, right here in Cathedral Square at 12 noon. You want to do something about it? Vote for the party that's going to protect the unborn, not the one that wants to kill them. And be here on August 15th, 12 o'clock, stand up and march with those of like mind who actually want to get up and do something and have a voice for those who can't speak for themselves. Thanks this morning.